As Jade Rivers led them up the winding mountain road, the vintage motorcycles coughed and sputtered. This address in the affluent Bel-Air neighborhood was allocated to her by her delivery app. She was already 15 minutes late. She looked at the GPS on her cracked phone screen while the Los Angeles sun beat down cruelly on her old leather jacket. A strand of long auburn hair that kept falling across her eyes was tucked away when Jade adjusted her helmet. She had mastered the skill of balancing 3 part-time jobs while earning her degree in mechanical engineering from UCLA at the age of 23. She seldom ever gave herself the luxury of sleep, and today was no different. She had attended 2 lessons and been up since 5 in the morning, and now faced a 6-hour delivery shift that would likely stretch into the night. The motorcycle, a 1998 Honda she had salvaged from a junkyard and rebuilt herself, lurched as she turned onto the private driveway. Jade's heart sank as the massive estate came into view. 3 stories of modern architecture rose before her, all glass and steel gleaming in the afternoon light. Perfectly manicured lawns stretched in every direction, and a fountain featuring abstract sculptures bubbled near the entrance. She parked her decrepit bike next to the circular driveway, feeling acutely aware of how out of place it looked. The contrast was almost comical. Her motorcycle, held together with spare parts and determination, stood before a garage that undoubtedly housed vehicles worth more than her entire education. Jade grabbed the insulated bag containing the order and climbed the marble steps to the front door. She pressed the doorbell and heard a melodious chime echo from within. While waiting, she tried to brush some of the road dust from her jeans and straighten her delivery company shirt. It was a futile effort. The door opened and Jade found herself looking up at a man who took her breath away. He stood tall, around 6 feet, with dark hair that fell casually across his forehead. His eyes were a striking shade of gray, intelligent and intense. He wore a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that suggested he spent time doing more than just sitting behind a desk. There was a weariness around his eyes that Jade recognized immediately because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. "Your delivery," Jade murmured, sounding more breathless than she meant to. She extended the bag after clearing her throat. "I apologize for the wait. Sunset traffic was awful." Harrison Sterling was totally unprepared for the young woman in front of him when he opened the door on a whim. He had been expecting his assistant to gather the food. She was stunning despite the lines of fatigue around her eyes and the speck of what appeared to be motor oil on her cheek. But it was not just her appearance that caught his attention. There was something in the way she held herself, a quiet determination mixed with pride, that intrigued him instantly. "No problem at all," Harrison replied, taking the bag. His fingers briefly brushed against hers, and he noticed her hands were calloused, the nails short and practical. "How much do I owe you?" Jade checked her phone. $42.50. Harrison pulled out his wallet and handed her $320. "Keep the change." Jade's eyes widened slightly. A $277.50 tip was generous. More than generous. "Thank you, sir. That's very kind." "Harrison," he corrected gently. "And it's well deserved. You rode all the way up here on that." He nodded toward her motorcycle. A defensive spark lit in Jade's green eyes. "She might not look like much, but I rebuilt her myself. She runs perfectly well." Harrison held up his hands in a gesture of peace, a smile playing at his lips. "I meant no disrespect. Actually, I'm impressed. How long did the rebuild take?" The question surprised Jade. Most people either ignored her motorcycle entirely or made condescending remarks about it. No one ever asked about the work itself. "About 8 months, she answered, her tone warming. "I had to fabricate some custom parts when I couldn't find originals. The engine was completely seized when I got her." "You did all the mechanical work yourself?" Harrison's interest was genuine, and Jade found herself relaxing despite the strangeness of the situation. "Everything except the welding for the frame repairs," Jade confirmed. "I had to take it to a shop for that. I'm learning to weld in one of my classes, but I wasn't confident enough to work on structural components yet." "Classes?" Harrison asked, leaning against the door frame in a way that suggested he had forgotten about the cooling food in his hands. Jade hesitated. She usually kept her personal life separate from her delivery work, but something about this man made her want to share. I'm studying mechanical engineering at UCLA, third year. Harrison's expression shifted to one of unmistakable admiration. That's a challenging program. How do you manage it along with this job? Carefully, Jade replied with a wry smile. And with a lot of coffee. I also work at a campus library and do tutoring on weekends. It keeps me busy, but it's worth it. There was a moment of silence where they simply looked at each other, both sensing an unexpected connection. Harrison found himself wanting to know everything about this young woman who rebuilt motorcycles and studied engineering while working multiple jobs. Jade found herself curious about the man who lived in this enormous mansion alone and asked questions like he genuinely cared about the answers. Harrison's phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the spell. He glanced at it and frowned. I should let you get back to your deliveries, he said reluctantly. Jade nodded, already backing toward the steps. Thank you again for the tip. Thank you for bringing the food all this way, Harrison replied. Then, on an impulse he did not fully understand, he added, I order from that restaurant fairly often. Maybe I'll see you again. Jade smiled, a real smile that transformed her tired features. Maybe you will. She returned to her motorcycle and Harrison watched from the doorway as she kick-started it. The engine roared to life after only one try, and Jade gave him a small wave before putting on her helmet and riding back down the driveway. Harrison stood there long after she had disappeared from view, the bag of food forgotten in his hand. For the first time in months, perhaps years, he felt genuinely interested in another person. Not in their connections, their wealth, or what they could do for his business empire, just in them as a person. Inside his vast empty mansion, Harrison set the food on the kitchen counter and pulled out his phone. He opened the delivery app and saved the restaurant to his favorites. Then, he did something he had never done before. He left a review specifically praising the delivery driver, hoping the algorithm might assign her to his orders in the future. Meanwhile, Jade navigated back through the wealthy neighborhood toward her next delivery downtown. She tried to focus on the road, on the list of orders waiting in her queue, on anything except the gray eyes and unexpected kindness of the man in the mansion. She had no time for distractions, no matter how intriguing they might be. Her life was carefully balanced between survival and ambition. No room for complications. But as she merged onto the freeway, Jade could not help glancing at the generous tip in her delivery app earnings. And she could not quite suppress the small flutter of hope that maybe, just maybe, she would receive another order to that address soon. That night, Jade returned to her shared flat in Westwood and fell onto her bed without taking off her jacket. Riley Martinez, her best friend and roommate, peered through the door. A long day? Riley inquired, but Jade's tired sprawl gave away the answer. The longest, Jade mumbled into her pillow. But I made good money. Got a huge tip from some guy in Bel-Air. Riley perched on the edge of the bed, her brown eyes curious. Tell me more about this generous tipper. Jade rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling with its water stain in the corner they kept meaning to report to the landlord. It was nothing. Just a regular delivery. Jade Rivers, I've known you since freshman year, Riley said with a knowing smile. You have that look. What look? Jade protested, though she could feel heat rising in her cheeks. That look that says something interesting happened, and you're trying very hard to pretend it didn't matter. Riley crossed her arms. Spill. Jade sighed, knowing her friend would not relent. He was just nice, okay? He asked about my motorcycle, about school. Most people don't even make eye contact with delivery drivers. It was refreshing, that's all. Was he cute? Riley asked with a mischievous grin. That's not relevant, Jade replied. But her smile gave her away. So, he was cute, Riley concluded triumphantly. Good for you. When are you seeing him again? I'm not, Jade said firmly, sitting up. Riley, even if I wanted to, which I don't have time for, he lives in a mansion in Bel-Air. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with a broken air conditioner and share a bathroom with you. We exist in completely different universes. Riley's expression softened. Maybe. Or maybe the universe is trying to tell you something. The universe is trying to tell me I have a thermodynamics exam on Monday and I should be studying instead of having this conversation, Jade countered, reaching for her backpack. But as Riley left and Jade spread her textbooks across her bed, her mind kept drifting back to the mansion, to the man with the grey eyes who had looked at her motorcycle with respect instead of disdain, who had asked about her studies like they mattered. She shook her head firmly and focused on the equations in front of her. She had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to let herself be distracted. Now, no matter how kind his smile had been. What Jade did not know was that across the city in his penthouse office overlooking the glittering Los Angeles skyline, Harrison Sterling was having similar thoughts. He sat at his desk, unable to concentrate on the quarterly reports his CFO had sent over. Instead, he found himself thinking about calloused hands and determined green eyes, about a young woman who rebuilt motorcycles and studied engineering while working 3 jobs to make her dreams come true. Harrison had spent the past decade building his technology empire, making strategic decisions and calculated moves that had made him a billionaire before 40. He had learned to see people as assets or liabilities, to calculate risk versus reward in every interaction. But something about Jade Rivers made him want to forget all of that calculation and simply know her, understand what drove her, what made her smile that transformative smile. He knew it was foolish. She was young, busy, clearly focused on goals that had nothing to do with him. And yet he could not shake the feeling that their brief encounter had been significant somehow, a momentary collision of 2 very different worlds that left both of them changed in ways they did not yet understand. Harrison closed the reports and instead opened his laptop to order dinner from the same restaurant, knowing it was irrational, knowing the chances of getting the same delivery driver were slim. But for the first time in years, he was willing to take a chance on something that had nothing to do with business strategy or calculated outcomes. He was willing to hope. 3 days passed before Harrison ordered from the same restaurant again. He told himself it was because he had enjoyed the food, but he knew he was lying to himself. When the delivery notification showed a different driver's name, disappointment washed over him more intensely than he cared to admit. He tried again the following weekend, this time on a Friday evening. When his phone pinged with the delivery update and he saw the driver photo, his heart actually skipped a beat. It was her. Jade pulled up to the mansion with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness she refused to acknowledge. She had completed 17 deliveries since her last visit to this address, but none had stayed in her mind quite like this one. When Harrison opened the door, his face lit up with such genuine pleasure that Jade felt warmth spread through her chest. "Hello again," Harrison said, and his smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Hi," Jade replied, suddenly feeling shy. "Your order." "Thank you." Harrison took the bag, but made no move to close the door. "Your motorcycle sounds better than last time. Did you tune it?" Jade blinked in surprise. Most people could not tell one engine sound from another. Yet, he had noticed the difference from a single encounter a week ago. "I adjusted the carburetor and replaced a worn belt." "You have a good ear." "My father was an automotive engineer before he started his tech company," Harrison explained. "He used to take me to his garage on weekends. I grew up around the sound of engines." "Past tense?" Jade asked gently. Harrison's expression flickered with old pain. "He passed away 5 years ago. Heart attack. My mother went 2 years before that." "I'm so sorry," Jade said with genuine sympathy. She understood loss, having watched her own mother battle illness throughout her childhood before finally recovering. The fear of losing a parent was something she carried always. "Thank you." Harrison paused, then seemed to make a decision. "Listen, I know this might be unusual, but there's a Technology and Innovation Expo at the Convention Center next Saturday. I have tickets and was wondering if you might be interested in going. They're showcasing some remarkable engineering projects." Jade's immediate instinct was to refuse. This was crossing a line from customer to something else entirely. But the hopeful look in Harrison's eyes, combined with her genuine interest in the expo she had seen advertised but could not afford to attend, made her hesitate. "I work Saturdays," she said, though even she could hear the weakness in her excuse. "What about Sunday?" Harrison offered quickly. "It runs all weekend. Or any evening this week, whenever works for you." Jade bit her lip, torn between caution and curiosity. "Why?" she asked directly. Why would you want to spend time with me? Harrison appreciated her straightforwardness. Because in the 15 minutes we talked last week, I had a more interesting conversation than I've had in the past 6 months. Because you rebuilt a motorcycle from scratch while studying one of the hardest engineering programs in the country. Because when I look at you, I see someone real. And that's rarer than you might think in my world. The honesty in his voice made Jade's decision for her. Sunday afternoon, she said. I have a shift until 2, but I'm free after that. Harrison's smile could have powered the entire city. Perfect. I can pick you up wherever works best for you. Jade rattled off the address of a coffee shop near her apartment, not quite ready to reveal exactly where she lived. They exchanged phone numbers, and as Jade rode away, she felt like she was standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. Riley nearly screamed when Jade told her about the invitation. This is like a fairy tale. The delivery girl and the billionaire. It's just an expo, Jade protested, though she was already anxiously sorting through her limited wardrobe in her mind. And I don't even know if he's a billionaire. Riley pulled out her phone and typed rapidly. Harrison Sterling, CEO of Sterling Technologies, estimated net worth $3.2 billion. She turned the screen to show Jade a Forbes article with Harrison's photo. He's definitely a billionaire. Jade felt suddenly dizzy. She had known he was wealthy from the mansion, but seeing the actual numbers made it surreal, impossible. Riley, what am I doing? This is insane. We have nothing in common. Except engineering, motorcycles, and apparently chemistry, Riley countered. Jade, when was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not for school, not for work, not for your future, just for you, right now. Jade could not remember. Every choice she made was calculated. Every hour accounted for in service of her long-term goals. The idea of doing something simply because it made her happy felt foreign and slightly terrifying. What do I even wear to a technology expo with a billionaire? Jade asked, feeling panic rising. Riley grinned. Let me handle that. Sunday arrived too quickly. Jade stood outside the coffee shop in jeans and a fitted blazer Riley had insisted looked professional but approachable. Her hair was down for once, falling in waves past her shoulders, and she wore minimal makeup. When Harrison's sleek black sedan pulled up, her stomach did nervous flips. Harrison stepped out, and Jade was relieved to see he was dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. You look beautiful, he said simply, and the sincerity in his voice made her believe him. Thank you, Jade replied. You look nice, too. The drive to the convention center was filled with easy conversation about their respective weeks. Harrison told her about a frustrating board meeting where he had to defend an innovative project to conservative investors. Jade shared a story about a disastrous group project where she had ended up doing most of the work herself. Do you ever get tired of it? Harrison asked. Carrying so much weight on your own. Jade considered the question. Sometimes. But I learned early that if I want something done right, I need to do it myself. Depending on others just leads to disappointment. That's a lonely way to live, Harrison observed quietly. Says the man who lives alone in a mansion built for 20 people, Jade shot back, then immediately regretted her sharp tone. Sorry, that was rude. But Harrison laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. No, you're absolutely right. I suppose we both have our ways of protecting ourselves. The expo was magnificent. Spread across 3 floors, it featured everything from AI-driven robotics to sustainable energy solutions to advanced prosthetics. Jade moved through the exhibits with unbridled enthusiasm, asking detailed technical questions that impressed the presenters and made Harrison fall a little more for her with each interaction. At a booth showcasing modular construction robotics, Jade got into an animated discussion with the lead engineer about programming challenges. Harrison watched her face light up as she sketched potential solutions on the provided tablet. Her entire being focused and alive. This was who she was meant to be, he realized, not exhausted and stretched thin, but engaged and brilliant and passionate. You should be designing these systems, not just studying them, Harrison said as they walked away from the booth. Jade shrugged. Maybe someday. First, I have to finish my degree, pay off my student loans, help my younger brother with his college expenses. The big dreams come later. What if they didn't have to? Harrison asked. What if you could pursue those dreams now? Jade stopped walking and turned to face him. Harrison, I appreciate the thought, but I don't need rescuing. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I'm proud of that. I'm not looking for someone to make my life easier. I'm not offering to rescue you, Harrison said carefully. I'm suggesting that maybe you don't have to do everything alone. That accepting help or partnership doesn't diminish your accomplishments. They stood there in the middle of the crowded expo hall, people flowing around them like water around stones. Jade wanted to argue, to maintain her fierce independence, but something in Harrison's eyes made her pause. He was not looking at her with pity or condescension. He was looking at her with respect and something that might have been longing. Let's keep looking around, Jade said finally, not ready to explore the deeper implications of that conversation. They spent 4 more hours at the expo, stopping for overpriced coffee and finding themselves naturally gravitating toward exhibits that sparked genuine interest for both of them. When Harrison's phone rang with what was clearly an urgent work call, Jade watched him handle it with calm efficiency, seeing the brilliant businessman beneath the casual exterior. As the expo was closing and they walked back to his car, Harrison surprised her with a question. Tell me about your family. Your brother you mentioned. Jade smiled, her face softening. Caleb. He's 19 and starting college next fall. Wants to be a physical therapist. He's always been the compassionate one, always helping people. Our dad is a mechanic in a small town outside of Phoenix. Mom works at the local hospital in administration. They're good people, hardworking. Everything I am, I learned from them. They must be incredibly proud of you, Harrison said. I hope so, Jade replied quietly. They sacrificed a lot to help me get here. Dad took extra shifts for years to help with expenses. Mom worked double shifts when I needed a new laptop for school. I want to make it worth it. Harrison heard the weight of expectation in her voice, the pressure she put on herself. I'm sure they're already proud regardless of what you achieve. You're their daughter, not their investment. The simple statement hit Jade harder than expected, and she had to blink back sudden tears. They had reached his car, and instead of getting in immediately, Harrison turned to face her. Thank you for today, he said. I can't remember the last time I enjoyed myself this much. Me too, Jade admitted. This was really nice. Unexpected, but nice. Can I see you again? Harrison asked. Not at an expo or an event, just dinner, conversation, getting to know each other better. Jade knew she should be cautious. Their worlds were too different, the complications too numerous. But standing there in the convention center parking lot with the setting sun painting the sky orange and pink, looking into Harrison's hopeful gray eyes, she found herself saying yes. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a pattern. Harrison would text her in the mornings, simple messages asking about her day or sharing an interesting article. They met for coffee between her classes and his meetings. He came to watch her study at the campus library, content to work on his laptop while she pored over textbooks. She taught him about thermodynamics. He explained the intricacies of venture capital funding. Riley watched the romance develop with delight, but she also saw Jade's internal conflict. You're falling for him, she observed one evening as Jade got ready for another date. I know, Jade admitted. And it terrifies me. Why? Riley asked gently. Because what happens when he realizes I'm just a broke college student who smells like motor oil and instant ramen? When the novelty wears off and he sees all the ways I don't fit into his world. Jade's voice cracked slightly. I can't give him the life he's used to, Riley. I can't compete with the women who move in his circles. Riley took her friend's hands. Jade, listen to me. That man looks at you like you hung the moon. He's not interested in you fitting into his world. I think he's interested in finding a place in yours. The turning point came during Jade's midterm week. She had been running on 3 hours of sleep per night, juggling exams with her delivery shifts and a major engineering project that was worth 30% of her grade. Harrison had been understanding, giving her space to focus, but he texted regularly with encouragement and offers of help she consistently refused. On Thursday night, Jade's motorcycle finally gave up. The engine, pushed beyond its limits by constant use and deferred maintenance, died completely on her way to a delivery. She managed to coast into a gas station parking lot before it quit entirely, and she sat there on the curb next to her broken bike, finally allowing herself to cry. She could not afford the repairs. Her carefully budgeted finances had no room for unexpected expenses. Without the motorcycle, she could not do deliveries. Without deliveries, she could not make rent. The carefully constructed life she had built felt like it was collapsing around her. Through her tears, she called the only person she wanted to hear from. Harrison answered on the first ring. "Jade, what's wrong?" 20 minutes later, Harrison pulled up to the gas station. He took one look at Jade's tear-stained face and the defeated slump of her shoulders and pulled her into a hug. She resisted for only a moment before collapsing against him, letting herself be held. "The engine's completely seized," she said into his shirt. "I've been pushing her too hard. I knew this was coming, but I couldn't afford to fix it preventatively. And now it's going to cost even more, and I don't have the money, and I can't work without it, and I have 2 more exams this week, and I just can't do this anymore." "Hey, breathe," Harrison said gently, rubbing her back. "One problem at a time. Let's get you and the bike somewhere safe, and then we'll figure it out." He called a tow truck to take the motorcycle to a repair shop he knew. Then he drove Jade back to her apartment, where Riley took one look at them and discreetly disappeared into her room. "I'll lend you a car," Harrison said as they sat on Jade's worn couch. "I have several that just sit in the garage. Use whatever you need." "I can't accept that," Jade said automatically, though her voice lacked conviction. "Why not?" Harrison asked. "Jade, I care about you. Letting you struggle when I could easily help doesn't make you more independent. It just makes both of us miserable." "You don't understand," Jade said, fresh tears spilling over. "All my life I've had to work for everything. Nothing was ever given to me. If I start accepting help now, especially from you, what does that make me? Another woman using a rich man to make her life easier?" Harrison took her hands in his. "It makes you human. It makes you someone willing to accept help from someone who cares about you. Jade, your worth isn't determined by how much you struggle. Being independent doesn't mean refusing every offer of support." "But what about when you get tired of me?" Jade whispered, voicing her deepest fear. "When you realize I'm just ordinary and the challenge of winning me over was more interesting than actually being with me. I'll have let myself depend on you. And then what?" Harrison cupped her face gently, making her look at him. "You are the least ordinary person I've ever met. You're brilliant and determined and passionate about what you do. You rebuilt a motorcycle with your own hands. You're putting yourself through one of the hardest engineering programs in the country while working 3 jobs. You teach me something new every time we talk. The challenge isn't winning you over, Jade. The challenge is convincing you that you deserve to be cared for." The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable and perfect. Soft at first, then deeper as Jade let herself fall into it, let herself feel the connection she had been fighting against. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harrison rested his forehead against hers. "Let me help," he said quietly. "Not because you need it, but because I want to. Because caring about someone means wanting to make their life better when you can." Jade nodded, finally allowing herself to accept. "Okay, but I'm paying you back for the motorcycle repairs." Harrison smiled. "We'll negotiate terms later." The following Saturday, Harrison convinced Jade to take a day off from deliveries to visit his company's research and development facility. "I want to show you something," he said mysteriously. The Sterling Technologies campus was impressive, all modern architecture and green spaces. Harrison led her through security with his badge and into a massive building housing various laboratories and workshops. Engineers and programmers moved through the space with focused energy, and Jade felt instantly at home. "This is our advanced robotics division," Harrison explained as they entered a particular lab. "We're developing modular systems for disaster response and recovery. I thought you might have some insights on the mechanical challenges we're facing. For the next 3 hours, Jade worked alongside Harrison's top engineers, offering suggestions that came from her hands-on experience with mechanical systems. The team was impressed, and more than one engineer commented that she should consider applying for their internship program after graduation. "You did that on purpose," Jade accused Harrison later as they sat in his office. "You wanted them to see what I could do." "Guilty," Harrison admitted with a smile. "But was I wrong? You belong in a place like this, Jade, designing and building, not just delivering food and struggling to make ends meet." Through her tears, she called the only person she wanted to hear from. Harrison answered on the first ring. "Jade, what's wrong?" 20 minutes later, Harrison pulled up to the gas station. He took one look at Jade's tear-stained face and the defeated slump of her shoulders and pulled her into a hug. She resisted for only a moment before collapsing against him, letting herself be held. "The engine's completely seized," she said into his shirt. "I've been pushing her too hard. I knew this was coming, but I couldn't afford to fix it preventatively. And now it's going to cost even more, and I don't have the money, and I can't work without it, and I have 2 more exams this week, and I just can't do this anymore." "Hey, breathe," Harrison said gently, rubbing her back. "One problem at a time. Let's get you and the bike somewhere safe, and then we'll figure it out." He called a tow truck to take the motorcycle to a repair shop he knew. Then he drove Jade back to her apartment, where Riley took one look at them and discreetly disappeared into her room. "I'll lend you a car," Harrison said as they sat on Jade's worn couch. "I have several that just sit in the garage. Use whatever you need." "I can't accept that," Jade said automatically, though her voice lacked conviction. "Why not?" Harrison asked. "Jade, I care about you. Letting you struggle when I could easily help doesn't make you more independent. It just makes both of us miserable." "You don't understand," Jade said, fresh tears spilling over. "All my life I've had to work for everything. Nothing was ever given to me. If I start accepting help now, especially from you, what does that make me? Another woman using a rich man to make her life easier?" Harrison took her hands in his. "It makes you human. It makes you someone willing to accept help from someone who cares about you. Jade, your worth isn't determined by how much you struggle. Being independent doesn't mean refusing every offer of support." "But what about when you get tired of me?" Jade whispered, voicing her deepest fear. "When you realize I'm just ordinary and the challenge of winning me over was more interesting than actually being with me. I'll have let myself depend on you. And then what?" Harrison cupped her face gently, making her look at him. "You are the least ordinary person I've ever met. You're brilliant and determined and passionate about what you do. You rebuilt a motorcycle with your own hands. You're putting yourself through one of the hardest engineering programs in the country while working 3 jobs. You teach me something new every time we talk. The challenge isn't winning you over, Jade. The challenge is convincing you that you deserve to be cared for." The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable and perfect. Soft at first, then deeper as Jade let herself fall into it, let herself feel the connection she had been fighting against. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harrison rested his forehead against hers. "Let me help," he said quietly. "Not because you need it, but because I want to. Because caring about someone means wanting to make their life better when you can." Jade nodded, finally allowing herself to accept. "Okay, but I'm paying you back for the motorcycle repairs." Harrison smiled. "We'll negotiate terms later." The following Saturday, Harrison convinced Jade to take a day off from deliveries to visit his company's research and development facility. "I want to show you something," he said mysteriously. The Sterling Technologies campus was impressive, all modern architecture and green spaces. Harrison led her through security with his badge and into a massive building housing various laboratories and workshops. Engineers and programmers moved through the space with focused energy, and Jade felt instantly at home. "This is our advanced robotics division," Harrison explained as they entered a particular lab. "We're developing modular systems for disaster response and recovery. I thought you might have some insights on the mechanical challenges we're facing." For the next 3 hours, Jade worked alongside Harrison's top engineers, offering suggestions that came from her hands-on experience with mechanical systems. The team was impressed, and more than one engineer commented that she should consider applying for their internship program after graduation. "You did that on purpose," Jade accused Harrison later as they sat in his office. "You wanted them to see what I could do." "Guilty," Harrison admitted with a smile. "But was I wrong? You belong in a place like this, Jade, designing and building, not just delivering food and struggling to make ends meet."